I'm due for a win. I convinced myself. The casino took $14,600 and I missed my daughter's tuition. My name is Marcus. I run an HVAC business, or I used to. 3 months ago, I had a van with my name on it, a house with 2 cars in the driveway, and a daughter headed to state. Today I wear an orange apron and live in my brother's basement. People think it's about the money. It's not. It's about the lie you tell yourself at 2 a.m. when your hands shake, but you can't leave. I was disciplined for 2 years, $500 limit, twice a week, always walked away. Then my marriage cracked. The limit became 1,000. Then 2. Then I took out a loan against the house and told my wife it was for new equipment. My daughter texted me 17 times that last night. The deadline was Monday. I had her college savings in my pocket, just needed to triple it. The math was simple. The ending wasn't. Let me take you to that Tuesday when I took off my wedding ring and said those 5 words for the first time. When a father holds his daughter's future in chips, what dies first? His luck or her trust? Marcus walked into my section at 9 p.m. that Tuesday night in March, and I knew something was wrong before he even sat down. I'd been dealing blackjack at the Riverside Casino for 11 years, long enough to read a man's troubles and how he handles his chips. Marcus had been coming twice a week for 2 years, same schedule, same $500 limit, same Carhartt jacket with Mitchell HVAC stitched on the chest. He'd show me pictures of his daughter Kayla on his phone, talk about the Chiefs during football season, leave when his money ran out. Disciplined, controlled, normal. Tonight was different. His wedding ring was gone, leaving a pale indent on his finger that he kept touching. His hands trembled slightly as he bought in for $300. No small talk about work. No mention of Kayla getting into Kansas State. Just pushed his money across the felt and said, "Let's go, Ray." I shuffled the cards, trying not to stare at that naked ring finger. In 11 years, I'd seen every kind of player walk through these doors. The retirees burning through pension checks. The contractors floating between jobs. The divorced parents hiding from custody battles. But the worst were the ones like Marcus. The ones who had everything under control until suddenly they didn't. "Haven't seen you since Friday," I said, dealing the first hand. Professional small talk, the kind that lets someone open up if they want to. "Been busy." He got 15 against my 7 showing. The book says stand. Marcus hit. Drew a 9. Bust. Next hand. He doubled his bet to 50. Then 100. In 20 minutes, the 300 was gone. Marcus had never bet more than $25 a hand in 2 years. Never chased losses. Never played angry. He stood up, and I thought he was leaving. That would have been the Marcus I knew. Walk away when the money's gone. Instead, he walked to the ATM in the corner. The machine's blue glow lit his face as he punched in his PIN. I heard the mechanical whir of bills dispensing $500. His old limit, except he'd already lost 300. "I'm due for a win," he said when he sat back down, stacking the fresh 20s into chips. Those 5 words made my stomach drop. I'd heard them from hundreds of players over the years, always right before they crossed the line from recreational gambling to something darker. The other players at my table shifted uncomfortably. There was Dolores, a regular who played $10 hands and made her Social Security check last all month. Young guy named Tyler who came in after his warehouse shifts. They recognized what was happening. Everyone who spends time in casinos knows the smell of desperation. Marcus lost 3 hands in a row. 1-1. Lost 4 more. The tremor in his hands got worse. He kept touching that empty spot where his ring should have been, like probing a fresh wound. By 11 p.m., he was down to his last 100. "Maybe call it a night," Dolores suggested gently. She'd been playing next to desperate men for 20 years. Marcus didn't even look at her. Pushed the whole 100 forward. 1 hand. All or nothing. I wanted to slow down the deal, give him time to reconsider. But cameras watched everything. Pit boss Trevor stood 10 feet away, monitoring the action. My job was to deal cards, not save souls. That I dealt Marcus a 13. My up card was a 10. He needed to hit. Drew a 3, 16. The math said hit again. Marcus's hand hovered over the cards. In that moment, I saw him calculating not just the odds of the hand, but something bigger. How much was in his business account? What he could borrow? What he could sell? He hit. Drew a 7, 23. Bust. Marcus stood up slowly, like a man aging 10 years in 10 seconds. "I'll be back tomorrow," he said. Not to me. To the cards. To the table. To whatever voice in his head was already planning the next bet, that I watched him walk toward the exit, passing the ATM without stopping. That was something, at least. But I knew he'd be back. They always came back once they said those 5 words. The next player sat down in Marcus's spot before his seat got cold. The highway looked the same at 2:30 a.m. Every night, empty except for casino workers heading home and drunks who shouldn't be driving. I took the same route through suburban Kansas City, past the neighborhoods that got rougher the closer you got to the casino. Foreclosure signs dotted the lawns like tombstones. The Riverside pulled $2 million a month out of these streets, and you could see where it went. Not into these crumbling houses. That's for sure. Murphy's Diner sat between the casino and the decent neighborhoods, a buffer zone of fluorescent lights and strong coffee. The overnight crowd was always the same. Dealers, security guards, cocktail waitresses counting tips, and the occasional gambler who'd won big and wanted to celebrate with strangers who'd pretend to care. Cheryl was already in our usual booth, still wearing her dealer's vest, spreading 20s on the table to count. "440, she announced. Would have been more, but had a stiff on table 3 who played for 6 hours and tipped nothing. I slid in across from her, ordered coffee from Denise, who'd been working the overnight shift longer than I'd been dealing. The coffee tasted like burnt rubber, but it was hot, and it kept my hands busy. "Your boy Marcus looked rough tonight," Cheryl said, rubber banding her tips. "Saw him at the ATM twice." 3 times, Miguel corrected, joining us. He supervised the pit Tuesday nights, had probably watched Marcus's meltdown on the monitors. 800 total. That's not counting what he brought with him. "His wedding ring's gone," I said. Cheryl whistled low. "That's stage 3. Stage 1, they stop talking about family. Stage 2, they start hiding their phone when it rings. Stage 3, they pawn the jewelry. Stage 4's when they take out loans," Miguel added, pouring sugar into his coffee until it was more syrup than liquid. "Had a guy last month, owned a landscaping business. Took out 40 grand against his truck fleet. Lost it in a weekend. I thought about my brother Tommy, how fast it had happened with him. One day he owned Prairie Plumbing, had 3 trucks, 5 employees, house in Overland Park. 6 months later, I found him passed out in one of those trucks, parked behind an abandoned strip mall, empty pill bottle on the dashboard. The note he'd left just said, 'Can't dig out.' Amy had taken the kids to her mother's by then. The business was gone. 90,000 in debt to casinos, credit cards, anyone who'd lend. The video poker machines at the gas stations had got him first, then the boats, then the sports betting apps. Always chasing, always one win away from getting even. Remember that teacher from Blue Springs?" Cheryl was saying. "The one who embezzled from the PDA? Elementary school music teacher," Miguel nodded. 12,000 from the fundraising account. Said she was going to win it back before anyone noticed. I counted my tips while they talked. $240. Some of it was Marcus's money. Maybe the 20 he'd tossed me after his first win. Back when he was still up, still thought he could control this. Before he started touching that phantom wedding ring. Before he said those 5 words. "How's your brother doing?" Cheryl asked, like she'd read my mind. 3 years clean. I folded the bills into my wallet, each one feeling heavier than it should. "Still goes to meetings every week." "That's good," she said, but her tone suggested she knew the rest. How Tommy's kids still wouldn't stay overnight with him. How Amy remarried, some insurance guy who'd never touched a playing card in his life. How Tommy lived in a studio apartment now, worked at a hardware store, sent half his paycheck to creditors who'd agreed not to prosecute. "We're vampires," Miguel said suddenly, staring into his coffee. "We work in the dark, we take blood money, and we can't see ourselves in mirrors." "Jesus, Miguel," Cheryl said. Switched to decaf. But he wasn't wrong. I thought about Marcus driving home right now, probably calculating what he could pull together for tomorrow night. Thought about whoever was waiting for him. His wife Linda, his daughter. Did they know yet? Could they smell the casino on him? That mix of cigarette smoke and desperation that clings to your clothes? "My daughter's writing a paper about gambling addiction," I said. "Wants to interview me." Cheryl laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "What are you going to tell her?" "That daddy helps destroy lives for a living, but the health insurance is great?" That's exactly what I couldn't tell her. Beth was 21, smart, still believed people were basically good. Still believed her father was one of the good ones. My phone buzzed. Text from Beth. "Dad, can we talk tomorrow?" Need help understanding the psychology of addiction for my sociology paper. Tomorrow, I'd have to find a way to explain what I did without explaining what I really did. Beth showed up at my apartment at noon with her laptop, a recorder, and that determined look she'd had since she was 5 and decided to reorganize her kindergarten's book corner. She looked like her mother around the eyes, same way of seeing through bullshit, same inability to leave things alone that should be left alone. "This is for Professor Morrison's class," she said, setting up her equipment on my kitchen table. The apartment was nothing special. 2 bedrooms, beige walls, furniture from Target. The kind of place a 50-year-old divorced dealer could afford. She wants us to interview someone who sees addiction firsthand. I poured coffee, trying to figure out how to walk the line between education and honesty. "What do you want to know?" "Let's start basic. How many problem gamblers would you say you see in a typical week?" I almost laughed. "Define problem." "Someone gambling more than they can afford to lose." "Then about 90%. Beth's fingers paused over her keyboard. 90, maybe 85 on a good week. I sat down across from her, the recorder's red light blinking between us like a warning. "Look, people don't come to casinos with money they can afford to lose. They come with rent money, grocery money, medication money. They come with their kids' college funds." She typed quickly, professionally. "My daughter, the journalist. But the casino has responsible gaming policies, right? Signs about gambling addiction, helpline numbers." "Sure. Posted in the bathrooms where nobody looks. Pamphlets at the cashier cage that nobody takes. We're trained to identify problem gambling, but not to do anything about it unless specifically asked for help. That seems legal." "It seems legal. Because it is." Beth pulled up something on her laptop, turned it toward me. "The Riverside Casino's website, all bright colors and smiling people. It says here they promote responsible gaming and care about their community. They donated $50,000 to the school district last year," I said. "Pulled about $24 million out of the community, donated $50,000 back. That's like me stealing your car and giving you back a tire." "Dad." She gave me that look, the one that meant I was being too cynical for her academic purposes. "Can you talk about the types of gamblers you see? Like demographics?" I thought about how to categorize them. Retirees are the biggest group. Fixed income, lots of time, loneliness. They'll make $100 last 6 hours, just for the company. Then you've got the working class, contractors, warehouse workers, people with irregular pay who think one big win will solve everything. What about professionals? Middle class. Those are the dangerous ones, I said, thinking of Marcus. They've got more to lose and better credit. A retiree might lose their Social Security check, but a business owner can lose everything. House, business, employees' livelihoods. Beth was quiet for a moment, typing. Then, "Do you ever see someone who's obviously spiraling and want to intervene?" The question hung between us. I could tell her about the training, the policies, the liability issues. Instead, I found myself talking about Marcus, though I didn't use his name. "There's a guy right now," I said. "Owned a business, had it under control for years. Something happened, maybe marriage problems, I don't know, and now he's chasing. Came in last night with his wedding ring gone. Lost more than he's ever lost before. Can't you say something?" "Say what?" "Sir, I've noticed you're destroying your life. Perhaps you should stop?" I'd be fired before the words finished leaving my mouth. "But if you know he's hurting himself, it's not illegal to hurt yourself," I said. "It's not illegal to make bad choices. And it's definitely not illegal for us to profit from those bad choices." Beth's typing had stopped. She was just looking at me now, really looking. "How do you sleep at night?" The question everyone wanted to ask, but only your daughter would. "Not well." "Have you ever thought about quitting?" "Every night." I stood up, refilled my coffee cup just to have something to do with my hands. "But I'm 50 years old with a high school diploma. The casino pays me 60 grand a year plus tips. Where else am I going to make that?" "Walmart." "Home Depot." "Money isn't everything, Dad," says the girl whose college I'm paying for with that money. It came out harsher than I meant. Beth's face flushed, but she didn't back down. She never did. "Tell me about the interventions that are allowed," she said, voice steady. "The responsible gaming resources." I sat back down, tried to be the interview subject she needed. "If someone asks for help, we can provide information about the state's voluntary exclusion program. They can ban themselves from all casinos in Missouri. We have hotline numbers. Gamblers' anonymous meeting lists." "How many people ask?" "In 11 years? Maybe 5, Out of how many problem gamblers? Thousands. Beth closed her laptop slowly. Dad, do you think you're complicit? I thought about Tommy in that truck with the pill bottle. About Marcus touching his phantom wedding ring. About all the faces I'd watched crumble when the last chip was gone. Yeah, I said. I'm complicit. She reached across the table, took my hand. But you need the job. That's what I tell myself. We sat there for a moment. Father and daughter, both understanding something we wished we didn't. Then Beth opened her laptop again. Typed a few more lines. One more question, she said. If you could tell that spiraling businessman one thing, what would it be? I thought about Marcus, probably sitting in his office right now, looking at his business accounts, doing the math. That the house always wins. Not sometimes. Not usually. Always. The only way to win is to not play. But he won't listen. No, I said. He won't listen. They never do once they've said the magic words. What words? I'm due for a win. Beth typed that down, underlined it twice. Outside, I heard a car door slam, someone starting their day. In a few hours, I drive to the casino, put on my dealer's vest, and watch Marcus lose more money he couldn't afford to lose. I'd deal the cards that would hurt him, smile professionally, take my tips that my daughter was watching me, maybe seeing me clearly for the first time. Not as dad, but as a man who'd made choices and compromises, who'd traded his conscience for a steady paycheck. I should go, she said, packing up her things. I have class at 2. Beth, I called as she reached the door. The paper, don't use the casino's real name. Or mine. She nodded, understood. I'll call you River Casino. And you're just the dealer who asked not to be identified. After she left, I sat at the table, staring at the spot where the recorder had been. Tonight, I'd go to work. Marcus would be there, chasing his losses. I'd deal the cards. The house would win.my phone buzzed. Text from the casino. Reminder, all staff meeting at 5 p.m. to discuss new player rewards program. More ways to keep them at the tables. More rewards for losing. More complicity disguised as customer service that I'd be there. I always was. Marcus had been playing since 4 p.m. when I started my shift at 6. Cheryl told me he'd already rotated between 3 tables, up 3,000, then down 4. The pattern of a man trying to outsmart mathematics that I watched him from across the floor while waiting for my table assignment. He was at Dimitri's table, hunched over his chips like they might evaporate. 5th coffee, no food. The waitresses had given up offering. His phone sat face down beside his chips, buzzing every few minutes. Each time it lit up, he'd glance at it, grimace, flip it back over. Table 6, Trevor said, appearing beside me with his clipboard. High limit tonight. Marcus specifically requested you when you came on. High limit meant $100 minimums. It meant Trevor thought Marcus was good for serious money tonight. Marcus moved to my table at 6:30, carrying 2,000 in chips. His eyes were red-rimmed, the kind of tired that coffee can't fix. Ray, he said, like we were old friends. Finally, someone who deals me decent cards. That's how it starts. The superstition, the belief that dealers control luck. I'd become part of his system, his pattern, his delusion that winning was about finding the right combination of factors. How's Kayla? I asked while shuffling. Normal conversation, pretending this was normal. His face changed, softened for a second. Got into state. Engineering program. Partial scholarship. Then the softness turned hard. But you know what college costs these days. $14,600 for the first year, after the scholarship. Due Monday. Monday. For days away. That's why I'm here, he said, arranging his chips into neat stacks. I'm investing. Building the college fund. Better returns than any savings account, right? Investing. That's what they all called it when they couldn't admit what it really was. I dealt the first hand. Marcus bet 200, got a 19, stayed. I busted with 24. He smiled like he'd figured something out, like the universe had revealed a pattern. See, you're my lucky dealer. For the next hour, he rode the streaks. Up 800, down 6, up 4, down 7. His phone buzzed constantly. At one point, I saw the name Linda flash on the screen with a photo, pretty woman, mid-40s, smiling at what looked like a backyard barbecue. Marcus flipped the phone over so hard it slid off the table. Everything okay? I asked while collecting cards. Fine. Just family stuff. You know how it is. I didn't know. I'd known hundreds of men having family stuff while their chips disappeared. By 10 o'clock, Marcus was down to 500. The coffee wasn't working anymore. His head kept drooping between hands. But his hands never stopped moving, touching his empty ring finger, stacking and restacking chips, checking his phone without really looking at it. Maybe take a break, I suggested during a shuffle. Get some food. Can't eat when I'm working, he said. This is work, Ray. I'm working on something here. That's when I knew he was gone. When gambling becomes work, when losing becomes investing, when chance becomes a system, that's when a person transforms from player to addict. Marcus left at 1 a.m., down 2,500 total. Tomorrow I'm bringing real money, he said. Tonight was just practice. Real money. I wondered what that meant. Savings, loan, retirement fund? He walked out past the ATM without stopping, which meant he'd already hit his daily limit. Tomorrow he'd come back with cash from somewhere else. They always did. Thursday was my day off, but I couldn't stop thinking about Marcus. I drove past Mitchell HVAC on Troost Avenue around noon, telling myself I was just going to the hardware store nearby. His van sat in the lot, heating and cooling since 2008, painted on the side. Through the window, I could see him at a desk, surrounded by papers, calculator in hand, that I sat in my car for 5 minutes, debating. What would I say? Hey, I know I deal you cards for a living, but I'm worried about you. He'd think I was insane. Or worse, he'd think I was trying to get him to gamble more, some sick reverse psychology to keep a good customer. Instead, I drove to St. Luke's Methodist, where Tommy went to NA meetings. Not his regular day, but I knew the building, the basement room with its circle of metal chairs and bad coffee. The noon meeting was letting out. Different addiction, same destroyed faces rebuilding themselves one day at a time. I sat in the parking lot, remembering the day Amy called me. Tommy's in the ER, she'd said, voice flat with exhaustion. Pills. They pumped his stomach. That was 3 years ago. I'd driven to the hospital, found him hooked to monitors, looking gray as the sheets. I couldn't see a way out, he'd said. 90,000, Ray. How does a person owe 90,000 to casinos? $5 at a time, that's how. Video poker at gas stations. Then the boats. Then the sports apps. Always chasing. Always one bet from even. I'd helped him find treatment, driven him to meetings, watched him shake and sweat through withdrawal. Not from the pills, that was just the finale. From the gambling, the real addiction. The need to bet, to chase, to believe the next hand would fix everything. My phone rang. Beth. Dad, I've been researching gambling addiction. Did you know it activates the same brain regions as cocaine? Yeah, I knew that. And that suicide rates for problem gamblers are 20 times higher than the general population. I thought about Tommy's pill bottle. Yeah, I knew that too. How can you? She stopped herself. Sorry, I'm not calling to guilt trip you. This is heavy stuff. It is. That businessman you mentioned, is he going to be okay? I watched a couple exit St. Luke's, holding hands, wearing those determined faces of people in early recovery. I don't know. Could you give him one of those hotline cards? Like, accidentally drop it or something. I'd kept those cards from a training 5 years ago. Technically contraband. Dealers weren't supposed to carry them. But I still had them, buried in my closet with old uniforms. That would be against policy, I said. Since when do you care about policy? Since I needed this job. Since I had bills. Since I was 50 years old with no other options. I'll think about it, I said. After we hung up, I drove home and found those cards. Faded orange with black text. Problem gambling? Call 1-888-BETSOFF. Help is available 24/7. I put one in my wallet, behind my license where nobody would see it. Maybe I'd never use it. Maybe Marcus would figure things out on his own. Maybe he'd win tonight and walk away forever. Maybe. But I'd been dealing long enough to know that maybe was just another word for unlikely. I looked at the card one more time before closing my wallet. Such a small thing, a piece of paper with a phone number. But sometimes small things were all you could offer when watching someone drown. Tomorrow was Friday. Payday for most people. Marcus would have cash tomorrow. Real money. He'd called it that. I wondered whose real money it would be. Friday night came with March Madness energy. The casino packed with basketball bettors crowding around TVs, cheering and cursing with every basket. The promotional banners promised double comp points for high-volume players. Free drinks, free meals, free hotel rooms for anyone losing enough money. Marcus arrived at 7 wearing his Mitchell HVAC jacket like armor. He walked straight to my table, where Trevor was already waiting with the velvet rope lifted. High limit section, $100 minimum bets. Mr. Mitchell, Trevor said, all smiles and professionalism. Good to see you back. Can I get you anything? Dinner? Drinks? Just coffee, Marcus said, pulling out an envelope thick with bills. Maybe later on the food. $5,000. I watched him count it onto the table for the chips, all hundreds, crisp from the bank. He'd been to a bank today, which meant this wasn't from an ATM or cash advance. This was a withdrawal from something substantial, savings, maybe, or a business account. Big night planned. I asked while stacking his chips. Kayla's tuition, he said simply. I need 14,600. I've got 5 here, and when I run this up, everything's covered. When? Not if. When? For 2 hours, he played almost perfectly, made the right moves, caught the right cards. By 9, he was up 3,400. 8,400 total. More than halfway to the 14,600 he needed. Maybe take a break, I suggested during a shuffle. Lock in those winnings. Marcus laughed. I'm not even close yet, Ray. I need the full amount. Can't pay half a tuition. That's the gambler's curse. It's never enough. Up 3,000 isn't enough when you need 15. Up 10 isn't enough when you've lost 20. The target keeps moving because the real target isn't money. It's the feeling, the validation, the proof that you're not a loser. By 10, Marcus had 11,000 in front of him. Other players watched with envy and awe. Trevor brought him a comp slip for the steakhouse upstairs. Marcus waved it off. I'm working, he said, that word again. Working. Then the cards turned. They always do. That's not luck or jinx or karma. It's math. The house edge, grinding away, inevitable as erosion. 11,000 became 9. 9 became 7. Marcus's hands started shaking again. He ordered a vodka tonic, his first drink I'd ever seen him order in 2 years. Just a cold streak. Another player said, trying to be supportive. It'll turn around. But Marcus wasn't listening. He was doing mental calculations, his lips moving slightly. 7,000 plus the 5 he came with meant he was still up 2. But up 2 wasn't 14,600. Wasn't Kayla's tuition. By 11, he was down to 4,000. Below his starting point. The vodka was gone, replaced by another. His phone buzzed nonstop. I counted 17 times in 1 hour. He'd stopped even looking at it. Last shuffle of the night coming up, I announced at midnight. Casino policy. Dealers announced last shuffle, so players can't claim they didn't know. Marcus looked at his remaining chips. 2,000. He'd lost 3,000 of the money he'd brought, plus all his winnings. In his mind, though, he wasn't down 3, he was down from the 11,000 peak. Down 9,000 from where he'd been. I'll be back tomorrow, he said, standing slowly. Bring the real bankroll. Real bankroll. I'd heard him say real money yesterday. What was realer than 5,000 in hundreds? As he walked away, one chip fell from his stack, rolled across the carpet. He didn't notice or didn't care. I picked it up, $100 chip, enough for groceries for a week, abandoned like a penny. Trevor appeared beside me. Your friend's good for more, right? I can approve a credit line if he needs it. He's not my friend, I said. But he's good for it? Owns a business. I wanted to say no, wanted to lie, wanted to protect Marcus from himself. Instead, I said nothing. Let Trevor draw his own conclusions. The house always wins, but it wins faster when credit's involved. Tomorrow Marcus would be back. With what money, I didn't know. But he'd be back. They always came back when they were chasing. And 14,600 was a lot to chase. Monday was getting closer. Kayla's tuition was coming due. I clocked out, walked through the parking lot where Marcus's van sat running, him inside, head against the steering wheel. I kept walking. That's what we do. We deal the cards, and we keep walking. Saturday morning. Tommy called at 8 a.m. I texted him late last night, asking about helping someone who didn't want help, keeping it vague. You talking about a player? His voice was rough, 3 years sober rough, like every word cost him something. Yeah, you can't save them, Ray. I know you want to. God, I know. But until they hit their bottom, you're just watching. What if I could? What? Slip them a hotline number. Tell them about meetings? You think Amy didn't try that with me? You think she didn't leave pamphlets around, beg me to get help? I remembered those fights. Amy crying in my living room while Tommy promised he'd quit tomorrow, next week, after he won back just a little more. You know what finally stopped me? Tommy asked. waking up in the hospital with a tube down my throat. Even then, took another month before I called for help. And I was lucky. I woke up. This guy has a daughter. College kid. Tommy was quiet for a moment. I had kids too. Still do, technically. Haven't seen them in 8 months. Amy says maybe Christmas if I stay clean. That's not fair. It's completely fair. I stole from their college funds, Ray. Cashed out bonds their grandparents bought. Told myself I was investing it, would triple it, give them even more. Sound familiar? It sounded exactly like Marcus. So I just watch. Unless you want to lose your job for nothing, yeah? You watch. And you remember you're not responsible for his choices. But I dealt the cards. I took the money. I was the mechanism by which he destroyed himself. I hear you thinking, Tommy said. Same thing I used to think about my dealer at the boats. Guy named Eddie. Always seemed sad when I lost. I hated him and needed him at the same time. You think he could have saved me? No. Then stop thinking you can save your guy. After we hung up, I couldn't stop moving. Cleaned my apartment, did laundry, anything to keep busy. At noon, I drove past Marcus's house, a nice 2-story in Brookside. Linda's car wasn't in the driveway. His van was gone too, probably at the shop, working Saturday to make up for money lost or getting more cash. That afternoon, I found myself at Price Chopper buying groceries I didn't need. That's where I saw Linda Mitchell in the cereal aisle, looking at boxes without really seeing them. Her eyes were red and puffy that we'd met at casino Christmas parties, back when Marcus brought his family, back when he was just a regular player with everything under control. She recognized me, tried to smile. Ray, right? From the casino? Yeah. Hi, Linda. She abandoned pretense immediately. Was he there last night? Casino policy said I couldn't discuss patrons. But her eyes said she already knew. I can't. He took out a home equity loan, she said, words tumbling out. $25,000. Told me it was for new equipment for the business. I found the casino receipts in his van. $25,000. That explained tonight's real bankroll. Can't you cut him off? She asked. Tell him he's not allowed to play. I'm just a dealer. I don't have that authority. Then who does? He has to cut himself off. There's a voluntary exclusion program. Linda laughed, bitter and short. Voluntary. Marcus never volunteers that anything's wrong. Still says he's investing, building Kayla's college fund. Her voice broke on Kayla's name. The tuition's due Monday. $14,000. We had it saved, but it's gone. All of it. I wanted to tell her about Tommy, about recovery being possible. But Tommy had lost his family first. Maybe that was the price. There's help available, I said carefully. Gamblers Anonymous. Counseling, he won't go. Says he doesn't have a problem, just bad luck. She grabbed my arm suddenly. Please. If he comes in tonight, please just, I don't know, deal him bad cards. Make him lose quickly so he comes home. The cards don't work that way. It's random. The house edge. The house always wins, I know. Marcus explained the math to me. Showed me his system. She let go of my arm. He really believes he can beat it. They all do. That's the sickness, believing you're special, exempt from mathematics. I have to go, Linda said. If he finds out I talked to you. She left her half-full card in the aisle. I watched her drive away in a car that probably wasn't paid off, to a house leveraged for gambling money, to face a future she never planned for. That night, I arrived at work to find Marcus already there, waiting. He had more cash than I'd ever seen him carry. The real bankroll had arrived, and Trevor was ready with the paperwork for a credit line. Just in case, the disaster was accelerating, and all I could do was deal the cards. Marcus stood at my table with $14,000 in a bank envelope. Saturday, 8 p.m. The home equity money. He announced it to the table like a declaration of war. Tonight's the comeback, he said, stacking hundreds on the felt. Everything I'm down, plus Kayla's tuition, plus a cushion. One night to fix everything. Trevor personally handled the buy-in, counting bills with practiced efficiency. The other players went quiet. Even degenerate gamblers recognized catastrophe. An older woman named Estelle, who'd been playing $5 chips, colored up and left. Good luck, honey, she whispered to Marcus. The saddest blessing I'd ever heard. Trevor assigned Marcus a personal host. Nancy, blonde and bright, smiled. Paid to make losers feel like winners. She brought him coffee without asking, offered dinner he wouldn't eat, promised a comp room he'd probably need. Marcus started conservative, $100 bets, playing by the book. By 9, he was up $3,000. By 10, up $8. 22,000 total. Enough to pay tuition and recoup some losses. Cash out, I wanted to say. Walk away. Instead, I dealt the next hand. That's when Marcus ordered vodka. First one I'd seen him drink in 2 years. Nancy brought Belvedere, top shelf, comped of course. Everything was comped when you were losing this much money. Tequila. Marcus toasted nobody. Then down half the glass. The cards turned at 11:15. Marcus had been riding a streak, pressing bets, 500 a hand. Then came 4 straight losses. 2,000 gone in 4 minutes. He ordered another vodka. Just variance. He mumbled, the gambler's prayer. Regression to the mean. But regression works both ways. His wins had been the variance. The losses were the mean. By midnight, Marcus was down to 6,000. He'd lost 8,000 of the home equity money. His phone sat beside his chips, screen cracked from when he'd slammed it down after a bad beat. I could see the notifications, missed calls from Linda, texts from Kayla. Take a break, Nancy suggested gently. We have a beautiful suite available. Marcus looked at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. I can't stop now. I'm due. Those words again. He pushed 2,000 forward. Lost. Another 2,000. Split tens, an amateur desperation move. Lost both hands. 1:30 a.m. Marcus had 2,000 left. His head drooped between hands, vodka and exhaustion taking their toll. Nancy kept bringing coffee now, trying to sober him up. Final bet, Marcus announced, pushing everything forward. 2,000 straight up. I dealt him 12. My showing card was a 7. The book says hit. Hit, Marcus said. I dealt a 4. 16. Hit. 3. 19. A solid hand. I flipped my whole card. 10. 17. Marcus had won. Yes. He actually smiled, first time all night. 4,000 in chips now. See? The tide's turning. But tides don't turn in casinos. They only go out. He bet 1,000. Lost. Another 1,000. Lost. Down to 2,000 again. I need a marker, Marcus told Trevor. Credit line. Trevor had the paperwork ready, had probably been waiting all night for this moment. We can do 10,000, Mr. Mitchell. Based on your play history. Marcus signed without reading. Why read? He knew what it said. Another 10,000 in debt on top of everything else. The chips appeared like magic. Marcus straightened in his chair, recharged by false hope. He bet 500 won. Another 500 won. Up to 11,000. Now we're talking, he said, but his hands shook as he placed the next bet. His body knew what his mind wouldn't admit. This ended only one way. By 2:30 a.m., Marcus had lost it all. 10,000 in credit, gone. 14,000 in home equity, gone. Kayla's tuition, gone. His marriage, probably gone. His business, in jeopardy. He stood slowly, like a man underwater. Looked at the empty felt where his chips had been. Nancy offered him the room key, but he walked past her, past the ATM, past everything. I watched him go, knowing he'd be back tomorrow. Sunday, the day before tuition was due. He'd find money somewhere, retirement account, business funds, something. They always found money until there was none left to find. Your friend okay? Nancy asked, professionally concerned. He's not my friend, I said, but I was the one who dealt him every losing hand. I was the smiling face of his destruction. If not friends, what were we? Dealer and player? Predator and prey? I didn't have a word for what we were. Maybe there wasn't one. Maybe some relationships existed outside language, in that space between guilt and commerce, between mathematics and tragedy. Tomorrow he'd be back. Monday, Kayla would lose her spot at state. And I'd still be here, dealing cards, watching the next Marcus, and the next, and the next. The house always wins. That's not a slogan. It's physics. And I was the mechanism by which physics operated. Sunday arrived gray and humid, storm clouds building over Kansas City. I couldn't shake the image of Marcus's face when he'd lost everything. That moment of recognition before denial kicked back in. Beth called around noon. Dad, I've been thinking about our conversation. About that businessman. Yeah, I did more research. There's something called the chasing phase, where gamblers try to win back losses. It's neurological. Their brains literally can't assess risk properly anymore. I thought about Marcus signing that credit line without reading it. That sounds right. Can I shadow you tonight? For my paper? I promise I'll be professional. No. The word came out harder than intended. Not tonight. Why not tonight specifically? Because tonight Marcus would return with whatever money he'd scraped together. Because Monday was Kayla's deadline. Because I couldn't let my daughter watch me deal the cards that would finish destroying a man. Just not tonight, Beth. She was quiet for a moment. It's that businessman, isn't it? He's coming back. I can't discuss. Dad, stop. Just stop with the casino policy crap. You're my father. Talk to me. So I did. Told her about the home equity loan, the credit line, the daughter's tuition due tomorrow. No names, but the story poured out. My God, Beth said when I finished. And you have to deal to him? I don't have to. I choose to. Because I need this job. That's not a choice, Dad. That's economic coercion. College had taught her fancy terms for old problems. But she wasn't wrong. What would you do? I asked. I'd quit. And pay bills how? Buy groceries how? I'd figure it out. People figure it out. Young people figured it out. 21-year-olds with degrees and options figured it out. 50-year-old dealers with mortgages and no other skills. We dealt cards. I have to go, I said. Shift starts at 6. Dad, be careful. Of what? Of becoming someone you can't live with. Too late, I thought, but didn't say that. I arrived at the casino early, hoping to avoid Marcus, maybe trade shifts with someone. But he was already there, had been there since opening at noon according to Cheryl. He was at her table, down to his last few hundred. Where'd he get more money? I asked her during a dealer change. Pulled up in an Uber. Think he sold his van. The HVAC van. His business vehicle. Without it, he couldn't work. Couldn't service clients. Couldn't earn. I took over my table at 6. Different section from Marcus. Small mercy. But at 8, he found me. Walked over with 300 in wrinkled 20s and 10s, probably from selling tools or pawning something else. Ray, he said. Sober this time, stone cold sober. I need 14,000. Marcus, I know what you're thinking. But listen, I've got a system now. I figured out what went wrong yesterday. He pulled out a notebook covered in calculations, charts, probability tables. See? I was betting emotionally. Tonight, pure math. His system was garbage, progressive betting that would work until it didn't, like all systems. But his eyes begged me to believe, to validate his delusion. Minimum bet's 100, I said. You've got 300. I'll build it up. Start small, grow it steady. He lasted 30 minutes. 300 became 0 in 3 hands. He stood there, looking at the empty spot where his chips had been. I need a loan, he said to Trevor, who'd materialized beside us. You've already got 10,000 in markers, Mr. Mitchell. I'm good for it. I own a business. Without your van. Trevor's smile was sympathetic but firm. I'm sorry. I can't extend more credit. Marcus looked around wildly, like money might appear from the air. His phone rang, Linda's picture flashing. He declined it. It rang again immediately. Declined. Then Kayla called. He answered that one, walked away from the table. I could see him in the corner, shoulders hunched, one hand over his eyes. When he came back, his face was wet. She knows, he said to nobody. My daughter knows I lost her college money. He sat at my table with no chips, no money, nothing. Just sat there. Sir, if you're not playing, Trevor started. I'm thinking, Marcus said. Just let me think. He pulled out his phone, started scrolling through banking apps. Checking account, $47. Savings, $0. Business account, for $100. The coffee fund he'd already rated. There's nothing left, he said, revelation in his voice. I had 40,000 in equity, 15 in savings. Gone in a week. Marcus, I said, breaking every protocol. There's help available. He looked at me like I'd slapped him. Help? I don't need help. I need 14,000 by tomorrow morning. The money's gone. No. He stood up, chair scraping. No, it's not gone. It's here. In this building. I just need to win it back. But he had nothing left to bet. No collateral, no credit, no assets. Just a notebook full of worthless calculations and a daughter who'd lost her college spot. He walked out past the ATM, past the cashier cage, past the bright slots calling like sirens. I watched him go, wondering if he'd be back. They always came back, but only if they found more money. Later, cleaning up my table, I found his notebook. Page after page of systems, calculations, records of every bet for the past week. The math of delusion, the arithmetic of addiction. On the last page, different handwriting. Kayla's maybe, or Linda's. Please come home. I turned it in to lost and found. Another piece of wreckage from another ruined life. Tomorrow, Kayla would lose her spot at state. Marcus would lose his business without the van. Linda would file for divorce. And I'd be here, dealing cards to the next Marcus, and the next, and the next. Beth was right. I was becoming someone I couldn't live with. But I'd clock in tomorrow anyway. Bills didn't pay themselves. Neither did guilt. Point 2 in the morning. I was helping security walk Marcus to the elevator. He'd passed out at the table after downing 3 vodkas in 20 minutes, trying to drink away the reality of having nothing left to bet. Easy, said James, the security guard, as we steadied Marcus between us. Watch his head. Marcus mumbled something about systems, about variance, about being due. His jacket pocket caught on the chair, and his phone tumbled out, screen lighting up with notifications. I broke protocol. Pocketed the phone while James was looking away. In the employee bathroom, I scrolled through the messages, each one a fresh wound. Linda, the bank called about the equity loan. What did you do? Kayla, Dad, financial aid needs confirmation by 9 a.m. Monday, or I lose my spot. Kayla, Dad, please answer. Kayla, Mom says you're at the casino. Kayla, I worked so hard for this. Business partner Dave, Marcus, we missed payroll Friday. Where's the money? Employee Jose, boss, my check bounced. Linda, I'm taking Kayla to stay with my sister. Kayla, Dad, I don't understand. You promised. The last text was from an hour ago, from Kayla. I'll figure it out myself. Community college isn't the end of the world. My hands shook as I read that. Community college wasn't the end, but it was the end of her dreams, her plans, her faith in her father. I thought about calling Linda from Marcus's phone, telling her, what? That I was sorry? That I'd dealt the cards that destroyed their lives? I returned the phone to security, claimed I'd found it by the elevator. Marcus was unconscious in the comp room, sleeping off the vodka and the reality that he'd lost everything. Driving home, I couldn't get Kayla's texts out of my head. 18 years old, worked her ass off for that engineering scholarship. And now she'd spend 2 years at community college because her father believed in systems and being at home. I sat at my kitchen table with the problem gambling hotline card, turning it over and over. Such a small thing. Would it have mattered if I'd given it to Marcus a week ago? A month ago? Or would he have thrown it away, insulted that I'd suggested he had a problem? My phone buzzed. Beth, can't sleep. Keep thinking about that businessman's daughter. She's my age, right? Yeah. What's going to happen to her? Community college. Student loans. Maybe transfer later. Because her dad gambled away her future. Yes. And you helped. There it was, the truth I'd been dancing around. I helped. I was the smiling face that took the money, dealt the cards, enabled the destruction. I'm not judging you, Dad, Beth added. It's a lot. It was a lot. Too much, maybe. I thought about Tommy, 3 years clean, but still paying for his addiction. His kids still wouldn't stay overnight. His ex-wife still checked his bank statements. Trust, once broken, never fully healed. Would Kayla ever trust Marcus again? Would she visit him at holidays, bring grandkids around, or would she always wonder if Grandpa would gamble away their birthday money? I pulled out my laptop, looked up Gamblers Anonymous meetings. 7 a.m. at St. Luke's. Noon at the Presbyterian Church on Ward Parkway. Evening meetings scattered around the city. All these people trying to claw back from the hole they'd dug. All these families trying to rebuild. But first, they had to admit they had a problem. And Marcus was still in that casino hotel room, probably dreaming about the next bet, the next system, the next time he'd be due for AWIN.my phone rang. Unknown number. Ray. It was Linda Mitchell. I'm sorry to call so late. I got your number from the casino directory. Is Marcus? Is he okay? He's in a hotel room at the casino. Security helped him there. Drunk? Yeah. She was quiet for a moment. He sold his van today. Did you know that? Sold it to one of his employees for $8,000. Promised to buy it back next week. $8,000. He owes 10 to the casino, 25 on the house, God knows what else. I'm sorry. Are you? Or are you just sorry he's out of money to lose? The question cut deep because it was fair. Was I sorry for Marcus, or sorry I'd lost a good customer? I have a brother who went through this, I said. He's in recovery now. How bad did it get? He tried to kill himself. Linda's breath caught. Oh God. But he's 3 years clean now. It's possible. Marcus won't admit there's a problem. Says he's just had bad luck, that the math is on his side. The math was never on anyone's side except the house. That was the point. There are resources, I said. Gamblers Anonymous. Therapy, medication for the compulsion. Can you tell him that? Would he listen to you? I'm just his dealer, Linda. I'm part of the problem, not the solution. Then what am I supposed to do? I didn't have an answer. Tommy's wife had left, taken the kids, let him hit bottom alone. Maybe that was the only way. Maybe Marcus needed to wake up in that hotel room, realize he'd lost everything, and choose to get help. Or maybe he'd find more money somewhere, come back, lose that too. Maybe this was just the middle of the story, not the end. I have to go, Linda said. I need to figure out how to tell Kayla she's not going to stay tomorrow. After she hung up, I sat in my dark kitchen, Sunday afternoon. I told Beth she couldn't shadow me at work. She'd asked again, more insistent this time, talking about needing authentic observation for her sociology paper. Not tonight, I said, washing dishes that didn't need washing. Why? What's special about tonight? I turned off the water, faced my daughter. Remember that businessman I told you about? He's going to be there tonight, trying to find money he doesn't have for his daughter's tuition that's due tomorrow. Jesus. Dad. Yeah. Beth sat at my kitchen table, the same spot where she'd interviewed me days ago. Tell me about him. Not the gambling. Him. So I did. Told her about Marcus's HVAC business, 15 years building it up. His daughter Kayla, engineering scholarship to state, needed $14,000 for the balance. His wife Linda, high school sweethearts, 22 years married until this week. He had it all saved, I said. The full amount. Then something happened. Maybe marriage problems, I don't know. And he started chasing. Convinced himself he was investing. How much did he lose? $40,000 in a week. Home equity loan, savings, sold his work van today. Beth was quiet, processing. And you dealt him the cards. Most of them. How do you stand it? Same way a bartender stands watching alcoholics drink. Same way a gun store owner stands selling to someone who seems unstable. You tell yourself it's their choice. But you know better. Yeah, I know better. The house edge is mathematical. He never had a chance. None of them do. Then why? $50,000 a year plus tips, Beth. Health insurance. Retirement contribution. Where else am I going to get that? She looked at me with her mother's eyes, seeing through the excuse to the real problem. You're trapped too. Different kind of trap. Still a trap. My phone buzzed. Text from the casino. Reminder. New player loyalty program, training Monday 9 a.m. More ways to keep them at the tables. More rewards for losing. Dad, Beth said, what if you just didn't go in tonight? Someone else would deal to him. But it wouldn't be you. Such a simple distinction, but it mattered. It wouldn't be my hands dealing the cards that finished him off. Wouldn't be my face he'd remember when he thought about losing everything. I have to go, I said. Shift starts at 6. You don't have to. Yeah, Beth, I do. Because tomorrow I need to pay rent, and next week you need tuition, and this is what I do. I deal cards to people destroying themselves, and I cash my check. That's the darkest thing you've ever said. Welcome to adulthood. She stood, hugged me. Be careful, Dad. Of what? Of becoming someone you hate. After she left, I got ready for work. Black pants, white shirt, dealer's vest with the casino logo. Looked at myself in the mirror and saw what Marcus would see tonight, the face of the house. The smile that took everything. I drove to work knowing Marcus would be there, knowing he'd scramble for any money he could find, knowing it wouldn't be enough. The tuition deadline was tomorrow morning. His daughter's future, riding on whatever desperate bet he could make tonight. I in the parking lot. I saw him already. Standing by the entrance, phone to his ear, probably begging someone for a loan. His shoulders slumped with each rejection. But he'd go inside anyway. They always did. I walked past him, pretending not to see. He grabbed my arm. Ray, he said, eyes wild. I need your help. I can't help you, Marcus, I said, but he kept gripping my arm. Just hear me out. He pulled out a manila folder, hands shaking. Look, inside was Kayla's tuition bill. $14,600, due by 9 a.m. Monday. Tomorrow. Red stamp, final notice. I have $3,000, he said. I borrowed it from Kayla's college savings. My brother. A payday loan. If I can run it to 15 grand. Marcus, the math doesn't. I know the math. His voice cracked. I know the house edge. I know the odds. But I also know I've lost $40,000 this week. Variance says I'm due for a correction. That's not how variance works. That's gambler's fallacy, believing past losses influence future outcomes. But his eyes begged me to agree, to validate his delusion. I've been playing wrong, he continued. Too emotional. Tonight, pure strategy. Conservative. Build it slow. We stood there in the parking lot, him clutching his folder, me in my dealer's vest. Other employees walked past, pretending not to notice. Everyone knew a desperate player when they saw one. Please, Marcus said. Just deal me fair cards. The cards are always fair. That's the problem. He let go of my arm. Right? Of course. You're right. Inside, he went straight to my table. 6 p.m., Sunday night, quieter than usual. Just Marcus and two other players, a retired postal worker named Carl and a young woman celebrating her birthday. Marcus bought in for $3,000. His hand steady now, focused. He'd made peace with something. Maybe the delusion that tonight was different, maybe acceptance that it wasn't. He played conservatively at first. $100 bets, by the book. Won 3 of the first 5 hands, up 200. The birthday girl cheered for him. See, Marcus said to nobody. System works. By 7, he was up to 4,500. By 8, 5,200. Still far from 14,000, but climbing. He stayed disciplined, didn't chase, didn't drink. Just played the percentages. Then Anthony sat down. Drunk, loud, throwing money around. $1,000 bets, hitting on 17, splitting faces. Every wrong move possible, but catching lucky cards. You're playing it wrong, man, Anthony told Marcus. Gotta bet big to win big. Marcus ignored him, kept his $100 bet steady. But watching Anthony win with terrible play ate at him. The birthday girl left. Carl colored up. Just Marcus and Anthony now. Come on, Anthony taunted. Match my bet. Let's make this interesting. Marcus had 6,000. Less than halfway to Kayla's tuition. It was 10 p.m. One hand, Marcus said. $1,000. He lost. Another, Marcus said. Lost again. The discipline cracked. Marcus started matching Anthony bet for bet, trying to keep pace with drunk luck. By 11, Marcus had 1,500 left. I need a minute, Marcus told me, stepping away. He stood by the ATM, checking his phone. The payday loan app showed 0 available. His credit cards maxed. His brother not answering. He came back to the table with the same 1,500. All in, he said. 3 hands, 500 each. First hand, 20. He stayed. I drew 21, second hand, 19. I drew 20 to third hand, blackjack. Finally. But blackjack on 500 only paid 750. He had 2,000 now. I need more time, he said. Kayla's deadline is 9 a.m. I have 11 hours. But 2,000 doesn't become 14,000 in 11 hours, not without impossible luck. He knew it. I knew it. Anthony, drunk as he was, knew it. I'll loan you $5,000, Anthony offered. 50% interest. Loan shark rates. Marcus actually considered it before shaking his head. Even desperation had limits. He played his remaining 2,000 carefully, stretching it for hours. Up to 3,000. Down to 1. Up to 2,500. Down to 500, at 1 a.m. He had $600 left. 8 hours until Kayla's deadline. I'm done, he said, but didn't move that we both knew he wasn't done. Not until the money was gone. Not until hope was mathematically impossible. He pushed the 600 forward. One last hand. I dealt him 11. Doubled down with a marker, his last credit available. Drew a king. 21 that he had 1,200. Nowhere near enough. But he smiled anyway. That broken smile of someone who'd found meaning in meaningless victory. Tell Kayla I tried, he said to nobody. Then he walked away, leaving the chips on the table. 11:30 p.m. Marcus checked his banking apps obsessively, searching for forgotten money. The coffee fund in his business account for $100. He'd already taken that Friday. His retirement account showed 18,000, but carried a 40% penalty for early withdrawal and took 5 business days to process. Useless for tomorrow's deadline that he found 400 in the business checking, money he'd hidden from himself. Labeled Q2 taxes. At the ATM, he withdrew it all, plus the $12 fee. Back at my table, just Marcus now. The drunk Anthony had stumbled off to play craps. The casino felt hollow, like a church after services. Just the eternal sound of slots and desperation. This is it, Marcus said, laying down the cash. 800 total. I wanted to tell him to leave. Take the 800, Give it to Kayla for books at community college. Something useful. But I dealt instead. He bet 100. Lost. Another 100. Won. Back to 800. The math says I should be up by now, he muttered, consulting his notebook. 40,000 in losses. Statistically impossible without a correction. That's not how statistics work. Each hand is independent. The cards don't remember his losses. But explaining that would be cruel, like telling a dying man there's no heaven. Midnight came. Marcus had 700. He pulled out his phone, showed me a photo. That's Kayla at her high school graduation. Valedictorian. Full ride to state for engineering. Just needed 14,000 for room and board. Marcus. She's going to change the world. Ray. Build bridges or space shuttles or something amazing. If I can just. His phone rang. Linda. Yeah. He answered. No, I'm working late. Emergency call. Furnace breakdown. I know what time it is. Yes, I know the deadline is tomorrow. I said I'm handling it. He hung up, and we both knew she knew he was lying. Marcus bet his remaining 700 on one hand. Got 11, doubled down with his last marker. 800 he didn't have. I dealt him a 10. 21. Yes. He had 3,000 now. See? It's turning around. But 3,000 wasn't 14,000. Wasn't even close. Trevor appeared with paperwork. Mr. Mitchell, about your markers, I'm good for it. Marcus said automatically. I need a payment plan. In writing. Tonight. Marcus signed without reading, promising 500 a month he didn't have from a business that couldn't operate without the van he'd sold. 1 o'clock. Marcus had 3,200. He needed 14,000 by 9. What if, he said, what if I bet it all? 3-2 odds on a blackjack. I could. That's not how it works. Then what? What do I do? I pulled out the card. The orange problem gambling hotline card I wasn't supposed to have. Slid it across the felt. You get help. Marcus stared at it like it was written in a foreign language. I don't have a problem. I just have bad luck. You sold your van. You took out a home equity loan. You stole from your daughter's college fund. Borrowed. I borrowed it. To gamble. To invest. The word hung between us. Other employees glanced over. Trevor started walking toward us. I pocketed the card before Trevor could see. Marcus, you need to leave. I have 3,200, and your daughter needs 14,000 in 7 hours. It's over. The words hit him physically. He slumped. Aged 10 years and 10 seconds. I was up 11,000 Friday night. If I'd just walked away, but you didn't. I couldn't. It wasn't enough. It's never enough. That's the problem. Marcus stood slowly, left the chips on the table again. $3,200 abandoned like pocket change. Tomorrow some other dealer would wonder why there were unclaimed chips at their table. I ruined everything, he said. Not everything. You're still alive. Your family's still alive. Everything else can be rebuilt. Can it? I didn't answer because I didn't know. Tommy rebuilt, but alone. His family moved on without him. Maybe that's what recovery looked like. Rebuilding in the ruins of what you destroyed. Marcus walked out past the cashier cage where his chips sat unclaimed. Past the ATM he'd emptied. Past the bathroom where the helpline numbers were posted in the parking lot. I found him sitting in his car. Not the van. That was gone. But an older sedan he'd borrowed or rented. Head against the steering wheel. Not crying. Just sitting. I knocked on the window. Midnight. And Trevor brought the credit application to Marcus like a waiter delivering the check. 10,000 pre-approved, based on his play history. I shouldn't, Marcus said, but his hand was already reaching for the pen. It's instant approval, Trevor said. You've been a valued player this week. Valued at what they could extract. Marcus stared at the form. 10,000 at 24%. Atop a 25,000 home equity loan. If I could just get to 14,000, he said. Cameras watched. Trevor smiled. Marcus called Linda on speaker. Honey, I'm at an emergency call. Marcus, please come home. Kayla knows about the money. He froze. What? She called financial aid. She knows you withdrew the payment. He signed with shaking hands. Chips appeared. 10,000. With his 3,200, he had 13,200. Close. Get to 15,000 and walk away, he said. He won small bets, rose to 14,200, then lost. The cycle tightened. He chased systems from a notebook. 1:30, 12,000. 2 a.m., 8,000. Text from Kayla. Dad, where are you? He turned the phone down. 2:30, 4,000. I need to stop, he said, but didn't move. 3 a.m., 1100. One last bet. He pushed all. He drew 19. I drew 20. Marcus laughed. Broken. 20. He stood. The chip's gone. I had it. Could have walked. Trevor brought paperwork. Markers for 10,000 plus 800. Marcus signed without looking. I clocked out, but watched. Dimitri took over, efficient, mechanical. Marcus begged me to stay. Union rules prevented it. Security eventually removed him. In the parking lot, he sat in his car. I slid an orange hotline card under the window. Meeting at 7 a.m. St. Luke's. Basement. I don't have a problem, he said. You lost 40,000. He took the card. Why do you care? Because I dealt the cards. Weeks later, his HVAC shop closed. Patrons gossiped. Marcus, the guy who lost 40 grand. I kept dealing. Then at Home Depot, I saw him in an orange apron, steadier, thinner. 90 days clean, he said. Living with my brother. Kayla's at community college. Linda filed for divorce. You made the meeting. I did. It saved me. We stood between lumber and sawdust, dealer and player, enabler and enabled. He worked to rebuild. I returned to the table the next night. The house always wins. I am the house. Marcus found a way out. I never did. I think about him every shift, about the hands I dealt, and the people who sit convinced they're due for a win.